Hello and welcome to the Sharp Microsoft Connected event. It's great to have you here on our fourth such event. It's always a great opportunity to hear the latest from Sharp, Microsoft, as well as some special invited guests. My name is Chris Parker, and as well as being product manager at Sharp, it's also my pleasure to be moderating this event today. May I bring your attention to a couple of features of this Microsoft Live event. Probably the most important one is the closed caption for subtitles feature. And I'm aware that for some of you, maybe English is not your first language. So make sure you go into the settings and look for closed caption with the CC. And you can also choose from a variety of European languages with automatic translation. Give it a go, it's definitely worthwhile. At this point, may I also remind you that this event is being recorded. One of the highlights of the Connected event is always our expert panel discussion. This comes a little later, but this is where you have the opportunity as the audience to participate and get involved, and that is through your questions. So take a look at the Q&A option. You can sort of see a speech box with a question mark. If you go into that, you can pose your question, and we have a variety of moderators on the other end who will filter them and then give them to me. I hope you get through. So we put together an exciting event today, all about the impact and influence of Generation Z in the age of agile working. So Generation Z, these are the guys born from the mid-1990s onwards, always very familiar with the internet and have never bought a CD or DVD. They consume all their entertainment via Spotify or Netflix. And they're at home more and more in this agile working environment. This is where flexibility, speed and rapidity, with hopefully good results, all come together. So a great set of topics to be considering today, but less from me. Let's really hand over to the experts. And it's my pleasure to introduce Jason Court, who is our European Director of Marketing at Sharp here in London. Jason, the floor is yours.
Thanks for the introduction, Chris. And I think there is little dispute the global pandemic has had a deep and meaningful impact on our everyday lives. And has changed businesses and the way we work, possibly forever. But is it all bad, or can some good come from this? People may say that COVID has freed us from the chains of the desk, the distraction of open plan, and the commuting battle between home and office. We've all been there. But it has also taken away the social and creative dynamics of spontaneous conversations and the pure humanity of being face to face. So, on balance, are we better or worse off? The answer to this question, it's fair to say now, is that we have the benefit of experience on a truly global scale. From this, we can reflect on those things which we do not truly value, and equally on those things which, in going away, have proved that they were not really needed in the first place. Custom and habit rather than necessity. So could this be evolution at work? To truly evolve, this is to improve by making informed changes. We need to look beyond our own personal experiences and collect more data. Interestingly, at Sharp in 2018, before we'd heard of COVID-19, we were already thinking about the future workplace, but with people, young professionals in fact, as the starting point and not the technology. The insights we have gained since influenced our thinking, communications and services development. Then COVID arrived, forcing changes upon all of us as people by moving us out of our normal work environment. And then the technology has had to follow and adapt. Now, being in the midst of COVID, but with hopefully some light at the end of the tunnel, we thought it an appropriate time to understand how people's expectations for the future workplace have changed. To do this, we surveyed more than 6,000 workers young and old, in small and medium-sized businesses across Europe, to help us understand how the global pandemic has impacted their working needs and priorities for the future. As you may imagine, surveying 6,000 office workers across 8 countries and 4 generations from Gen Z to the baby boomers gave us a lot of data. From this, there's a whole range of insights to be found. The under 30s, being a mix of millennials and Gen Z, are the building blocks of our future economies and societies. Given this, I'd like to share some of the insights we took from this important group. As you see, over half of the under 30s surveyed agreed remote working was more productive, and 67% said losing the daily commutes contributed towards a healthier work-life balance. But Gen Zs still crave that physical office space, which may be surprising to some. While they recognise the benefits of remote working, young workers are still looking for businesses to provide physical office space and do not seem to endorse a full move away from the office. As we experience every day, the pandemic has forced workers into virtual meetings, but it appears these types of meetings and the use of video conferencing technology has provided office workers, and more specifically Gen Zs, with new opportunities to share their ideas and opinions, which might not have occurred face to face. And Gen Zs clearly want to embrace agile working, and they recognise that technology is key to this. Previous insights and the overall statistics from our survey tell us that these younger generations clearly value work for its economic and social health and wealth in their lives. In fact, one of the COVID lessons coming from this is that many businesses, old and new, large and small, which previously mistrusted flexible working practices, thinking it would lose productivity and loyalty. Actually, for many, the productivity concerns have proven unfounded, and quite the reverse with productivity growth. Furthermore, I think staff have validated to their employers that they do want and value both the virtual and physical office. Though for all of this, there is a but, and that is for employers to provide the technology which enables productivity and social connectivity in the new hybrid workplace of the future. And this is part of our mission at Sharp. So, recognising the value of going beyond our own perceptions and interpretations, we asked future workplace psychologist Viola Kraus, who has more than 16 years experience researching and consulting on the future of work, for her thoughts on our research. I hope you will find this as thought-provoking as I did.
Thank you so much, Jason, and also for the introduction and sharing insights. Well, let's share a little bit more. So Gen Z, those super tech savvy workers, they're confident digital users, they're seeking purpose. But is it all that shiny? Well, actually, they're confronted with a lot of contradictions. They're constantly trying to make sense of contradictory situations, and this requires immense brain energy. What do I mean? Well, let's look at communication. The way Gen Z communicates with their peers is in direct contradiction to our established corporate communication culture. And what about other generations? What about your generation? Where do you belong? Where do we belong in this room? Well, as a future of work psychologist, I'm on a quest to identify how all generations in the workplace adapt to and adopt technology to be productive. I'm on a quest to help your organization to provide that productive workspace. Now, when did it all start? Well, for me, it was back in 2004. I was a young professional just starting a very prestigious job in the heart of the financial capital of the world, New York City. There I was, from Germany, a little bit shy. I found myself on a 36th floor opening up my laptop. And there it was, my first digital personal assistant. What was it? It was the little PowerPoint helper. Basically, an add-on tool to be added into PowerPoint. And why was that? It was supposed to make my presentations boardroom ready. And guess what? It also made my working day more efficient and reduced my working hours. I would say to about 10 to 15%. Isn't that great? Imagine you could have that at work. Imagine what could be the workplace of the future for you if you had all the resources at hand. Time, money, technology. What is it that you would do? What do you see right now? What can you think about? Now, for the next 12 minutes, I'm inviting you on a journey to look at how the workplace has evolved and what we can do. And yes, we are all quite different, but you know what? There are many things that connect us, but at least 3 things, which is we are collaborating at work, we are communicating, and as human beings, we share compassion. Now, over the past 100 years of work, there have been many changes, but the 3 C's, they've always been critical. What have been those changes? Let's look at least at 3 major changes. Starting with the Industrial Revolution, late 19th century. There, human beings started for the first time to collaborate with machines. That was followed by the Information Age after Second World War II. At this stage, we started to collaborate with and communicate through computers. And now, the future of work, new work, digitalization is here. Now we can collaborate with artificial intelligence, with social robots. To be very concrete, think about recruiting. In recruiting, we now have digital assistants scheduling candidate interviews. We even have sometimes artificial intelligence conducting those very fast interview rounds. And if we look at the legal or accounting department, there we have smart software comparing old cases with new cases. And let me not get into the production environment. Now, what is there to come? We don't know. Now we're in the midst of a pandemic. The world is upside down. All what we've learned, we have to unlearn and we have to relearn and relearn over and over again. But you know what? Those traits that are unique to us humans, those will become even more critical. Now, what is it that you can do? How can you shape your business world, your work environment? Before I provide some solutions, actually, let's share a little bit more insights on different generations. Now, getting started again with Gen Z together with the millennials. Digitally fluent, they grew up with it. They love virtual communication. As a matter of fact, they prefer it with their peers and their bosses over face-to-face communication. And guess what? Every year, I have about over 100 of them in my workshops. And sometimes I would say, well, you know what? Your communication could be much more efficient if you were to pick up the phone or talk face-to-face. And you know what happens? Those young people, they look at me, wide eyes open, and they wonder, is it really true what Viola is telling us? Well, and what about Gen X? Born before 81, they grew up with emails. And I would suggest that they can act as a bridge between baby boomers and millennials. And the baby boomers, born before 69, they're slowly leaving the workforce, but right now they have a wealth of knowledge. At work, they find themselves at 2 extreme ends. On the one side, again, a wealth of knowledge, and they were the ones, they set up the business code of conduct, communication rules back then, having strong work ethic. And now, at the other side, they are confronted with all that new technology they did not grow up with. Now, are there some differences? Yes, absolutely. But putting all those differences aside, they do have all in common: collaboration, communication, and compassion. But of course, different ways of collaboration, and they know different communication tools. And when it comes to compassion, they have different experiences of compassion and different expectations. Now, getting to solutions soon, we have to look at human needs and productivity levels. Now, when it comes to collaboration and communication, we learned from our research with Sharp that more than 30% expect technology to have an even more vital role. And Gen Z, because they're all about purpose-driven, they want authenticity in the workplace. So if you just put up a show minding business code of conduct, they will not buy it. That collaboration will not work. And when it comes to communication, they want it now, they want it fast. No phone call, no email can be fast enough. You know, if they have a business idea, they want to share it with the CEO, and they will do it. They just find that communication channel. And as Jason mentioned earlier, the virtual meeting space is theirs. Why? Let me offer two suggestions. One, of course, they grew up with it. They love the camera. They're really tech savvy, at least most of them. But secondly, now let's, speaking as a psychologist, think about it. In a face-to-face meeting, we feel, at least unconsciously, we feel those hierarchical boundaries. But what happens in the virtual setting, this feeling diminishes. Now, not having those or not having that feeling of hierarchical boundaries, that means this group of people, this generation, they can speak up freely. Now, what's missing? Of course, the last C. Now, looking at compassion. Gen Z, for them, work is about also having meaningful relationship. Actually, I would like to call it a blended affair. Work is not just work, it melts with private life. So they need to have that social interaction virtually and, when possible, of course, also face-to-face. And within our research, it was suggested that they were the ones who very strongly not only suggested to have physical well-being programs, but also mental well-being programs. Now, where can you act? Now, let's also have a look at productivity levels, right? Let's look at 3 pillars of productivity. I know there are more, but technology needs to be in place, of course. But you also need to establish virtual business etiquette. And lastly, provide that constant learning experience. Let's get practical now. What is it really that you can do? So here it is. When it comes to collaboration, I'm suggesting the following. I said, of course, technology needs to be there in the office, but also at home. And mind you, really check with your workforce. Just because you have a laptop doesn't mean you have the proper connectivity at home, right? Good microphone, good camera, good connection to really collaborate with everyone in the office, at home, or I don't know, in Bali. But technology is not just productive. It is about user adoption rate. So get your people, get all of your generations adopt that technology. Have cross-generational learning. Have the young ones teach the older ones, and also have the older ones tell the younger ones, this is how it fits within our corporate culture. And lastly, be open, be creative to new ways of collaborating where Gen Z really feels great. This is a platform where I can share and learn. Now, sharing, when it comes to communication, we can really say that those old communication and meeting rules, they cannot be identically translated into the virtual world of working. Now, here's what I'm suggesting. Have a task force. Younger people, older people, several generations, and an outside expert. Get them together. They need to evaluate what has worked well in the past, what do we want to keep, and how can we translate it into a virtual work environment? And then come up with a new communication code of conduct that really mediates across those generations. And lastly, compassion. Remember, work is not just work for our younger employees. You need to show and share empathy for learning opportunities, social interactions. And mind you, it does not always have to be that pricey 3-day team away event. No, have little learning opportunities that are easily fitting weekly schedules. And more importantly is those learning opportunities need to be applicable to their daily business, to their daily work, because learnings need to be applied right away in order to be effective. This is how you really can create long-lasting learning effects and, get your return on investment. Are we at the end of our journey? Nearly. But the journey continues for you. Think about it. You need to get your business leaders future-proof. Be ready to show e-leadership. What is e-leadership? It is your digital leader who knows how to navigate the digital world and also can really foster and believes in cross-generational learning and working. So please collaborate, keep communicating, and very importantly, be compassionate with each other. Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to our next set of the event.
Thank you very much, Viola. That was an excellent keynote. I certainly took a lot of things away from there. Very powerful insights into, let's say, the generations working together. And I was really pleased to see some of those positive challenges which you also proposed to us. I hope for the audience also food for thought. I'm looking forward to the questions later when we get to the expert panel discussion. We've had two great keynotes now from Jason and Viola, and maybe chance now to change gear a little bit. We as Sharp, we've been invited into a company called Fondoff. It's a very specialized company in Germany on innovative textiles and fashion. They've opened their doors to us and allowed the cameras in, and we've got a bit of a viewpoint now, a video clip, 30 or 40 seconds, where we can see what it's like to live or to work in, let's say, a very hybrid and up-to-date modern working environment. So just lean back for 30 or 40 seconds, and we'll watch this video together. Yeah, that was a great video clip, very exciting. Amazing looking building called The Ship. It's in Cologne, and certainly one of the responsible persons and architects of that working environment is Matthias Heinz. And Matthias has very kindly joined us today at the event to tell us in a little bit more detail about Fondoff. Welcome to the show, Matthias. Maybe you can explain a bit more about Fondoff and about your particular role in the company.
Sure. Yeah. First of all, hello, Christopher and the audience. My name is Matthias, and I'm the head of the IT department at Fondoff since 2013. And Fondoff was founded in 2010 as a small startup for school backpacks. And after 10 years, we now have seven different backpacks brands, from kindergarten to business, and named Ergobag, Affenzahn, Ever, and more. Today we have over 300 employees, and so we moved to our new headquarter called The Ship, one of the most digital buildings in Germany, in 2019.
Wow, Matthias, that is an exciting growth story. How would you describe the working style and culture at Fondoff?
Yeah, at Fondoff we created a really healthy, positive thinking and productive corporate culture. We love to promote every employee to use his skills in the best way and learn from failing and stand up again. Also, it's normal to share your knowledge and your ideas. So in our building, we have an open space workspace, and every employee has a notebook, so he can easily work with the marketing people. Today or tomorrow, you can go to the customer service and take a seat there.
Lovely. And I mean, today we're looking a bit more in detail at, let's say, Generation Z. So, I mean, how do you see Generation Z and the benefits at Fondoff?
Yeah, our average age at Fondoff is 33 right now, so many employees are born in the 90s, more or less. And I think it's a different working experience when we have such a young average age in your company compared to other companies. Sure, sometimes you're missing some experience skills, but for us it's perfect to work with these colleagues who have the same mindset, the same skills in using digital mediums. So for us at Fondoff, it's not a challenge, it's a big benefit. And also to bring new technology to the company is easy for us as an IT department, because everybody in the company don't fear new products, be it software or hardware. So changes are often fast, not complicated, and very welcome.
Wow, sounds like a great culture. I mean, I know this year's been a challenge with COVID. I mean, how have you been dealing with the move, let's say, to hybrid working style?
So, you know, Corona hits everybody hard, I think. But at Fondoff, we have never a problem with working from home. We are allowed and promoted to work from home since 2014. So for us, it's not that big issue.
Okay. I mean, would you give any tips or advice on, let's say, dealing or working in a hybrid office environment?
I think, yeah, give your team the trust to work hard on themselves and working together and making great projects. Be there if they need you, create rules, processes and guidelines for everybody. And next, ask the employees for the personal goals in the next 3 months and repeat this every 6 months. And in the end, bring the right people to the right time together and let them learn from each other. In one sentence, be an enabler, not a supervisor.
That's a great bit of advice, and sounds like you've already been having some seminars from Viola. Maybe a final question to you, Matthias. I see behind you, you have one of our Sharp Windows collaboration displays, which is a great choice. I mean, how has that fitted in with your working style and with your collaboration tools?
Yeah, you know, we love using Office 365 and especially Microsoft Teams. So we use Teams for one-on-one calls with bigger teams, and also to communicate with our partners in Asia. And the Windows collaboration display was the perfect solution for us, because using Teams with the display is really intuitive. Also, the whiteboard functionality is very great. But the best part for me as an IT department was the very easy integrating into existing IT infrastructure. I think this is what we love the most.
That's lovely. Thank you very much, Matthias, for joining us today at the Connected event and explaining more about Fondoff and your experiences with hybrid working, and indeed showing us the Windows collaboration display just over your shoulder. It's been a real pleasure to have you on board. Thank you very much.
Have a great time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, Matthias. So we're about halfway through our Connected event now. And yes, we've come to the second half, which is the real highlight, which is our specialized panel discussion with the experts. So we're building up the panel now, and this is also a chance for me to remind you that this is your opportunity to place some questions in the Q&A boxes. So make sure you're acquainted and type in your questions. And let's maybe welcome in our panel. So hopefully we can have all 6 faces on board. Certainly Jason and Viola, welcome back into the panel this time. And we have 3 new faces. So let me just introduce our 3 entrants here. So first of all, Patrick Bouvet, Channel Executive for Partner Devices at Microsoft USA. Hello, Patrick, welcome. And then we also have Pietro Olioso, an architect with international experience and actually belonging to Generation Z. Welcome on our panel today, Pietro.
Hi, Chris. Hi, everybody. Thank you for the invitation.
Pleasure. And finally, last but not least, we have Gary Baylor, Director of Product Management at Sharp USA. Welcome on board.
Thanks, Chris. I really enjoy joining today.
Excellent, lovely. So hopefully the questions will start coming through shortly. And in the meantime, maybe I'll just kick off with a question for Patrick at Microsoft, and just to ask, how has the last 12 months been for you and for your company, Microsoft?
Great question, Chris, and thanks for asking. Of course, with COVID-19, 2020 was an exceptionally challenging year. That being said, I think for my experience and other colleagues at Microsoft, we did our best to adjust and adapt and use technology to get there. We saw a huge increase in PC sales and other devices such as webcams, headsets, you name it, as people moved to setting up their home offices. So I think, as Viola did a great job of explaining, people shifted and kept that focus on collaboration and communication through setting up those home offices. But I think it merits mentioning that the compassion is still needed. So I love some of those insights and tips that we've heard today about the 3 C's.
That's right. Thanks, Patrick. What about you, Gary? Sharp USA, how have the 12 months been for you with hybrid working and changes in the environment?
I think with everybody, it's challenging. The early stages are particularly challenging, and I think the resilience, though, that certainly speak within Sharp in the U.S., the resilience of our employees to quickly adapt to a very changing environment where they were responsible for not only their work activity at home, but also many with young children, and trying to have a hybrid education, teaching your children from both home in some areas of the country and half home the other times. But we adapted really well in terms of one of the fortunate parts from a Sharp point of view is we have so many different technologies in our businesses that we were able to assist our channel partners in preparing for that move, assist them with technology and programs to help their employees. And we've really started to move now to where the acceleration of a hybrid workforce, which we always expected. So it's not new to our thinking and our product planning cycles, but now it's accelerated. And that's a good thing for the industry. So we're really excited about where it's going, and really looking forward to the economies opening up much more in the very near future.
I'm sure we certainly all are, Gary. Well done. Pietro, you are our Generation Z attendee on the panel, specialized position. So how has you found the last 12 months? Has it been very difficult or quite straightforward for you?
Well, I have to say, despite the shock of a pandemic, dealing with the tools of remote working and agile working has not been that hard from a technological point of view, of how to use the tools. It's been a little bit more challenging for the organization of daily life and the efficiency in organizing our work. But it's also showed me, and talking with other friends of mine, it showed us what are the potentials for us to anticipate some of the steps that we would have taken maybe in 5 years in not only working for the office or for the firm we are working for, but also to start and create networks with all the people that we met, for example, in university and in different countries, and start to develop our own projects as freelance, for example, or we had the chance with some friends in China and also in the US, also in Australia, to get back in touch and organize a kind of cultural club with artists, fashion designers, architects, as I am, And this is not just a chance to like talk and have discussions, but also it's like evolving in something that is bringing actual occasions of collaborations in different countries. So we certainly know how to use tools in a, let's say, in quite a comfortable way, but we still explore the potential and we keep learning from it as well.
That's great. Pietro. I've got Marcel in France. He's got a good question here. Maybe start off with you, Viola, on this one, which is, do you have any advice on how to keep people engaged within hybrid meetings?
Thank you very much. That's an excellent question to France. And it actually also goes back to what Pietro was saying, that sometimes you don't really know how to make the best use of the technology. So the key really is to have certain level of interaction. And actually, I learned, and I practiced it, that you need to have some form of interaction every 2 to 3 minutes. So how can you do that? You need to trigger emotions. And you can do that either by sharing a video, showing a controversial picture, and by doing polling. Polling is a great tool, and all the different video platforms, they have their different ways of providing that technology. You can set up even your own polling on a slide. And lastly, especially if you have a small team setting, calling out people names. And I'm talking about groups, let's say max up to 15 people, so 15. Call out people names like, hello, XYZ, what do you think? And thank people when they write a comment in the chat. Not everyone likes to, speak it out verbally.
Very good.
I'll just add to that as well, actually, where you've got a largest team like that, what I've found is it's great in the meeting to assign a challenge to the team and then let the team go away in smaller groups, work it, and then come back together, but not take half an hour or 45 minutes, just short bursts. And it stimulates everyone. It makes sure that everyone gets engaged, and then it's played back to the team. So again, it's just a different way of ensuring that engagement and keeping people energized. Yeah,
I would heavily concur with that. Sorry.
No, that's a good point. Thank you very much, Jason. I mean, Patrick, maybe just going back to you, because I've got a question here on the. It's from the UK, but anonymous. But nonetheless, what do you think, from your generational point of view, you would like to give in terms of advice best to let's say the Generation Z, to make them more effective and help them in the hybrid environment?
Yeah, I think that's a great question from anonymous in the UK, whomever that may be. But yeah, I would say in terms of the advice to, and I think it goes through all the different generations, is really at Microsoft, we're very advocate taking a growth mindset. So, even though you might have a ton of career experience, always be open to grow, to learn from others, regardless of their age and experience and background. So we really embrace that growth mindset. And I think that can add value to any generation out there.
Very good.
If I may add something to this, I think this is the matter of learning is actually a very important issue, because especially from a Generation Z point of view, what we want to have from the first days of our career is learn as quickly as possible. In my case, learn as quickly as possible to then become a freelance or to then run your own office if you're an architect, but also exactly and this is a very important question, I think, for all of us. How can we keep learning in a hybrid way? If we can learn more, if we have to improve the tools of learning, because we learn by sharing for most of the time in our work, and that's, I think, a very good point. That could be made.
Maybe a question generally. I mean, let's see who can jump onto it. But the idea of mentoring, where you have maybe a more senior person mentoring a younger person. I mean, does it work both ways? Have we got any mentoring experience to offer?
Yeah, I mean, I'm fortunate enough to be mentoring someone in the Sharp business, and actually, you're right. It's a great two-way opportunity to learn from each other, and it's striking a balance between actually using your experience to tell someone this is what you need to do, because actually that might not be necessarily the right answer. And actually the learning sometimes is to go out and do things and either make mistakes or show there is a different way to do things. So I think it's really interesting from a mentoring perspective. It's not just about mentoring down, it's actually about that sort of circular benefit of mentoring between the two.
Yeah, I'll jump in a little bit as the baby boomer of the group here. I think that I get as much out of my younger team than I think they get from me. It's a two-way street, and that's what makes it fun. I mean, I've seen over the course of my 30+ years in this industry, so much change, and it's really not any different than when I entered the market. And I have 2 children that belong into that millennial Gen Z type of age group, and I see with them the changes that they're bringing along and their ideas and how they choose to attack and overcome certain challenges aren't that different. It's just their eyes are more wide open because they are okay with and should be okay with sometimes having failure, because from failure that's how we learn and adapt and make better decisions down the road. So I think that has to continue and is vitally important in a dual direction.
Very good. I mean, it reminds me actually very much, Viola, of your 3 C's and compassion, and the 3 C's go across all the generations. We have issues in the same way. I've got a question here from Michael in Edinburgh. It's actually quite an easy question, but I think it might have also other consequences and insights. And Viola, I'd like to ask you first. What do you think? Webcam on or off in a meeting? What's more effective, or what is more relaxing? Have you got a let's say an answer or an opinion on that? Webcam on or off?
Yes. Please, always on. And if you need to leave, for a little break, let people know. Say it in the chat function. But it's terrible when you have, especially if you have a small group and you talk against that black screen. That is not fostering interaction. This is not fostering bonding. I mean, remember, we have to make up for missing communication clues, as we talk about it in psychology. So the video helps us a little bit. Okay, so please, yes, off. Thank you very much to Edinburgh, Michael.
Yes.
But I think sometimes just adding to that, especially in the early COVID days, was bandwidth just not being enough. It felt like the whole world was video conferencing at the same time, and you'd get dropouts and so forth. And I think maybe people kind of started to give up and actually will just have video off anyway, or it was a convenient excuse. But it certainly feels like actually it's got better over time in terms of video quality and things like that. So less of an excuse, and I completely agree. Yeah, video on.
Any other comments? Video on, off?
Well, I had a chance to experiment this with a group of students because I was invited to teach at the China Academy of Art last year, and there was a course of 50 students which I never met before, and that was also one of my first actually teaching experiences. And yeah, of course, video on, also because I really needed to see their reactions and see if I was doing well, and see if they were getting distracted, and adjust the topics and the way I was talking to them. So that's really important, not only to like involve everybody, but also to have feedbacks, and that's, I think that worked better eventually.
Very good. I've got
I might
another.
add, Chris,
Please.
There's definitely advocate video on. You know, having the body language and seeing those visual cues is so important. But I also add that what I've noticed, kind of a strange phenomenon over the last year, is that you can also get a sense of people's personality by the background that they choose in teams. So, you know, if they're at the beach, maybe they're having a fun day. If it's a, you know, a blurred out background, maybe their dog's running around, maybe they're having a chaotic day at the house. So I think we've all kind of done our best to adopt to the new video collaboration mode, so to speak.
Very good. I'm sure the background is just another discussion area we could go into. What I would like to do though is a couple of people have written in questions which are related, as Peter from Germany and also Sam in the UK. It's more about well-being and, let's say, mental health and being happy working from home when you could be a little bit disconnected or maybe feeling excluded from general organisation. So, I mean, how can we get people to feel happy, comfortable, with good mental health, let's say, working in this situation? I don't know, Viola, any tips on that in the first step?
Yeah, I guess I would like to suggest 3 things, and I would say that those 3 things, they can happen right now. Let's think about the good old employee assistance program. So the hotlines just for emergency, or just to, you know, to vent, or just to share what's going on. That is never coming out of fashion, I would say. Secondly, in terms of team interaction, while it might appear still artificial to some people or some teams, having some virtual informal meetings. So the kitchen talk, right? We need to replace that and have some virtual format. And I have had many clients, and no matter if it was Gen Z or Gen X, being skeptical. And I pushed them and I thought, try it out. And even the most skeptical people, they could see a tiny benefit to just have that connection. And to be honest, to just share how it is tiring. You know, studies have shown us people are getting backaches, and that is connected to stress levels and so on and so forth. And I said 3 things. So the last thing is, think about really taking a break and having those walks. I've heard of people who would never go outside for a stroll in the park, as the British would say, right? It works wonder. And here, depending on the local regulations, but I see many people here in our compound where I live in Germany, teaming up, you know, with a distance, having a walk together. You know, and if you have to wear a mask, but this is possible. It's not that we need to be completely isolated. So let's not forget that. And it's just tiny moments, tiny changes, and they can have a real effect.
Thanks, Viola. Any other tips or guidance?
I think people shouldn't feel afraid, for want of a better word, of talking about their anxieties at work, or having dips through the working day and I just can't concentrate and such like, because actually all of us have you know, experienced that at some time. And again, being able to talk about it and having the empathy and the compassion, you know, from your line manager or your colleagues, again, can take some of that stress away, because, you know, we're all in, you know, different but challenging circumstances, whether it's the homeschooling that you've got to do, or the dog that you've got to walk, or, you know, the elderly relations that you need to worry about or think about, whatever the circumstance. And there's nothing wrong about talking about those things and sharing that we're all human, and let's be compassionate and understanding.
There's a sort of follow-on question from Graham in the UK, which is, you know, we've had a year many of us just working only from home. Is there a sense that maybe we are losing some interpersonal skills, that we're losing that ability for empathy or showing concern for other people? Pietro, it's a tough question, but
yeah, I was thinking about it. Thank you for the question, because that's actually not that straightforward. I think, yeah, that might be the case, but I think it's also going to be fast to recover once we are gonna get back together, if not every day, let's say at least a few days in a week, and maybe not full capacity of the office. And yeah, I think it's going to be fast, because we are social animals, and each of us. And that's one of the things that it's easier for every person in their own way to communicate. From this point of view, I think also like a slow come back to the office and will be helpful. And I think also the tools to make people share the same experience, let's say more or less the same experience with those that are physically present in the office and together maybe in the same meeting room, and the people at home following the same meeting, attending the same meeting. I think that's also a thing that we need to work out. For example, as architects, now we are receiving many requests on adapting companies and office spaces to have more meeting room and more like rooms for video calls and these kind of hybrid meetings, which is not only about the tools that you have, it's also about the space you create. There are people at home that are maybe in a cozy environment, people in the office that maybe shouldn't be in such a formal environment speaking with those people at home. So there are a lot of also secondary issues to analyze that can contribute to easy this interaction.
I mean, maybe Pietro, you touched the one point which I think we can all sort of hopefully agree on. We want to go back, and we will be going back, and you know, vaccines are coming slowly but surely. So I mean, what could be done to make sure that the return to the office is as straightforward as possible and also provides reassurance? So I mean, Jason, what would you do to make sure that, you know, that return isn't associated with fear or trepidation?
Gosh, I think there's a lot of things to consider, but I think, as Pietro mentioned, it's that gradual return back to the office, so that people do have time to adjust, but not just adjust in the office, but adjust in moving away from having been at home every day, because you need to think about that change in the home life as well. And then I think also, and we were talking about this earlier, and Viola mentioned, it's about celebrating being back in the office and being genuine about it as well, which is really important to, you know, Generation Z, but not just Generation Z. I think that being genuine is important to everybody. So again, I think there are things like that we can do. Again, aside from the technology, I would add, from a technology point of view, I think a great benefit of having devices like the Windows collaboration display using Teams is that you pick it up instantly, because that's the environment that you've been working with in your desktop. So you're back in the office, in the meeting room, you know, you've now got to run the meeting in room, but actually you're using the technology and the platforms that you've been using remotely as well. So it's a seamless experience and something less to worry about.
And maybe, if I may add, Jason, maybe it would also be helpful for your people when they return to the office to have some exchange sessions. So create that space, that time where people can share what has worked well at home, what would I like to keep, and is that fitting, of course, the work productivity you expect to see at Sharp, to just basically have the learnings.
That's really good, isn't it? Because we don't want to lose those learnings.
Yeah.
You know, people talk about what is the new normal, but it'll only be new if actually we learn and make the changes. So I think that's a fantastic tip. Actually, it's gone in my book.
So Gary, maybe you can also help. There's a couple of questions, Frank in Switzerland, but also Mel in the UK. It's all about the use of technology in the hybrid situation or hybrid meetings. I mean, what would be your recommendation for the technology to get a good hybrid meeting working?
Well, I think that I think Jason just touched on it exactly, and that was the idea that we've spent nearly a year learning and perfecting a certain way of doing something from our home. Mm-hmm. Our work life, while we all, or many of us, want to have a little bit more balance, I think my wife would love for me to get the hell out of the house. Trust me, make somebody very happy. So we want to take the same tools and those learnings and just replicate it. That's how we become more productive in the environment. So the tools that you've learned, whether it's been Teams, okay, just migrate that right back to the office and back and forth. Your personal device that you're comfortable touching and you know is safe and secure. That device just moves with you and becomes the centerpiece of where your content is pointed to, and the display in the front of the room, whether it's our Windows collaboration displays or our Aquas Board and BigPad interactive displays, or even our commercial display products that can be casted from that device, okay, and seamlessly integrate. That reduces the tension back in the office and also provides for when, God forbid, okay, another outbreak may come back and we have to move back to our house, okay, we don't lose any productivity, we gain more. So that would be the advice I would give.
And Patrick, I mean, from your point of view, I mean, how would you make that return as seamless as possible and also make sure that the learnings from the last 12 months are also carried forward?
Yeah, it's a great question. What I've noticed, and I have been back to a few times over the past 12 months to Microsoft offices. I think it's kind of a two-way street. The leadership at the company needs to communicate what they're doing in terms of changes and social distancing requirements at the office. So an example of that is a conference room that maybe used to seat 20 people will now only seat, 7 to 8 people and provide more space. So I think, and then the second side of that is from the employees coming back, you have to also be open-minded that it will be back to the office, but there also will be these regulations and social distancing. And, at the building I work at, there's hand sanitizer stations. You have to do a health check-in to testify that you don't have any symptoms of COVID, and on and on. So I think, again, it's been a theme, just keeping that open mindset and being ready to adjust and be flexible as we do this phased approach back into the office.
Thank you very much, Patrick. I'm afraid it looks like our time is up. Thank you ever so much, panel, for great, informative, entertaining, insightful answers to the questions which we had received. Thank you to particularly Jason and Viola for great keynotes. Certainly feel more informed and certainly more optimistic about moving forward. But perhaps biggest thanks to the audience for taking part and also supplying us with a good range of questions which have been testing us and really pushing our knowledge and our experience and responses to the limit. It's been great to have you all on board, and certainly we're looking forward to maybe having another connected event sometime in the future. So for me, it's goodbye. From the panel, it's goodbye, and it's stay healthy. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.